Chasing the Mind, podcast number 22. Beautifully Authentic with Renee Powers. Welcome to Chasing the Mind, hosted by Dr. Angela Johnson and Dr. Stephanie Schwartz, the podcast that explores the art and science of the mind. Each episode, we will feature a topic or guest who offers a unique perspective in answering the following questions. How do our thoughts influence our sense of who we are? How do we impact the world around us? And can changing our minds change everything? Today on Chasing the Mind, hear Dr. Angela say,
"Let the lotus within you bloom."
And Dr. Stephanie, as they talk with Renee Powers, host of the Wild Cozy Truth podcast.
Hey, Mind Chasers, it's Dr. Angela, and we are back with a terrific episode for you today. We have Renee Powers, who is a feminist life coach, a writer, a podcaster, and up till recently, she was doing a doctoral project, which we're going to talk about on the show. She lives in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and she hosts the podcast, The Wild Cozy Truth, where she interviews everyday women about their extraordinary stories. She believes that every woman has a story, and we find strength in sharing and listening to them. Her doctoral research had actually focused on authenticity and privacy in women's online spaces. So on today's show, you're going to hear us talking a lot about authenticity in YouTube videos, for instance. She draws on feminist theoretical insights in her academic work and in the coaching that she does with others. In her spare time, she loves to try new recipes and explore the Twin Cities. And you'll have all the information of how to get a hold of Renee. Follow her on Facebook. You can follow her on Instagram at Wild Cozy Truth. And we will have links to all of that in the show notes. But before we get to that, first of all, I want to say thank you for listening and taking the time to be with us today. This episode will mark the return of Dr. Stephanie, who was with us when we talked to Renee. First of all, I don't think I could have pried her away from the microphone to do this interview if I'd tried. Dr. Stephanie is a huge fan of online YouTube beauty stars, I guess. Is what you would call them. But she has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to the kinds of content that's out there and kind of what's going on in that world. I think a lot of the episode focuses on how little I actually know about this, but I learned a great deal. And I will say that I think the conversation went to some really interesting places. We talked about some of the nuances of both, the sort of the pros and cons, the pitfalls, and wonderful things about the beauty industry, and the ways that women are both empowered by their choices in how they represent themselves, and also sometimes they have to deal with the pushback that they get because of the way our society has put demands on women for the way that they look. And I think that this conversation really kind of goes to all of those places and more. So I really hope you enjoy it. Chasing the Mind listeners, today we have Renee Powers, who, my goodness, there's so much that you do. I don't even know where to start. But I will say one of the reasons that we had to have Renee on is that when I saw her bio and everything that she did, she's working on a dissertation that is fascinating, and I know is fascinating to Dr. Stephanie. But
Very
first,
true.
we want to have Renee introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, yeah, thank you. I do wear many, many hats. I think that's actually pretty common with PhD candidates because we're kind of trying to build our what's next for us when we see the light at the end of the tunnel. But yeah, I am a PhD candidate in the Department of Communication at the University of Illinois at Chicago. I study online authenticity and privacy and the intersections of those two things within women's online spaces. So I like to tell people I study the internet, but I have a background in women and gender studies. So a lot of my work is influenced by feminist theory. So that's my academic hat, but I also host the podcast Wild Cozy Truth, which is a space for women to tell their own stories. I interview everyday women, everyone from other podcasters to my mother-in-law to my neighbors. I truly believe that every woman has an interesting or extraordinary story, and we can learn so much through connecting to telling our stories and listening to others' stories. So I am intimately passionate about amplifying women's stories, and I also have recently begun my own feminist life coaching practice. So yeah, there's a lot of things going on. And I just moved to Minneapolis about 4 weeks ago. So meanwhile, I'm like trying to renovate a house.
Wow. Well, I hate to burst the bubble, but from two people here who have doctorates, like the whole scrambling and doing a million things, I don't think that changes much after you get the PhD.
Yeah, no, I know. But I'm just really looking forward to the dissertation monkey off my back.
We have both been there, sister, and we say amen. Amen to you. That was one reason I was never going to get a doctorate. I'm like, are you kidding? I'm not doing that. But then,
right.
You have to. So
I always tell my students I really don't like homework, and dissertation is a big homework.
It's a one large, never-ending piece of homework.
Exactly. And then 5 years later or 10 years later, does anybody well, actually, I do get asked sometimes on the stand what my dissertation was about, and I'm like, it's completely unrelated, so why do we care? But
exactly.
Oh my gosh. So let's unpack some of that. I mean, first, well, your podcast is really unusual in that not only do you interview women, but you have a part of your podcast where you read essays. I believe most of them you've written, or do you do other women's essays as well?
All of them I have written. Yeah. So the reason why I study online communities is because I have been a part of online communities since before we called them online communities. I've been a blogger since before we called it blogging. I've really found a sense of connection online, and especially through writing online. And I have, like I said, I've had blogs for years, and this has just become my newest outlet for writing and sharing online. And through sharing my story, I hope to inspire others to share their stories, as hard as it can be. But yeah, every episode is named after the essay that I've written for that week, and I read that essay at the beginning of every episode. And it's fairly short. Like, they run 300 to 500 words. They're not like dissertation length by any means.
So how did you arrive at the name Wild Cozy Truth? I find that kind of intriguing.
Yeah, so I knew that this was something I had the skeleton of what this project was going to look like. And funny enough, my master's thesis was on Pinterest and post-feminist rhetoric on Pinterest. And so I was very familiar with Pinterest as a platform, and I use it a lot in my personal life. And I started to build this Pinterest board of things that inspired me, just how I wanted this project to feel. And once that kind of was an established Pinterest board, I guess, like I had enough images that it felt like a cohesive idea or a cohesive aesthetic, I looked at it and I said, well, okay, well, what does this say? Well, there's definitely this wild woman archetype that is coming through. So I love that idea of the wild, untamed, unleashed femininity. And I want to speak to everyday truths. So I had wild and I had truth. And then I was looking at these images and I thought, there's something so cozy about these images. I'm very interested and inspired by just really warm places, or like cozy places and comfortable places. I'm such a homebody. And I thought, well, what does cozy mean to me? And I actually have an essay about the word cozy. And I think that cozy is a specific kind of comfort, familiarity, and almost a sexiness without being like sex sells, but like a casual sexiness and comfort within your own body. And that was something that I was really, really interested in conveying, was this sense of self-love and body acceptance. Wherever your body is, being comfortable and being cozy within your own skin was really important for me to be a part of this project. So that's where the title came from. It was a Pinterest board.
That's actually really cool. I love that.
No, and I'm like, that master's thesis sounds really super interesting, actually.
It's very dated now. I wrote it in 2012, and the internet has definitely changed since then.
Talk a little bit about feminist life coaching. What is feminist life coaching?
Yeah, I don't know. No, I know.
You're just making it up as you go along.
Partly, yes. I have a lot of contention with the term life coach. I find it can easily become a hack. And I didn't want to be part of that. Like, I just want to make money on your problems like that. And I didn't want to step on the toes of therapists and licensed psychiatrists and psychologists. I'm a huge proponent of therapy and strongly believe that life coaching is not a replacement for therapy, but the two can go hand in hand. So the way that I approach life coaching generally is accountability towards a goal or a feeling or a kind of balance in your life that you don't have yet. But I'm very well read and have gone through quite a bit myself and can help someone get to that place in a, I don't want to say linear because nothing is linear, but in a step-by-step progressive way. But because I have this problem with the term life coach, I didn't know what it was that I wanted to be doing, like how I wanted to help women get to those goals and develop those lives and lifestyles that they're striving for. And I realized that by qualifying it with the word feminist, which is a very important word to me, I can incorporate my academic background in feminist theory and at the same time critique life coaching as a practice through feminist theory. Does that make sense?
No, I'm thinking about what you're saying, and we're probably going to have to take it apart a little more. I mean, I have some of the same, I'm a psychologist and
right.
I do clinical work with individuals in my office, and we've started to talk a little bit about, do we want to do some, what we would consider to be life coaching, because it's more accessible to people. Not everybody needs therapy. Not everybody has a mental illness and needs, in-depth intrapsychic treatment. But there are people, like you said, who are trying to, make a transition, go from one kind of lifestyle to another, or change something about what they're doing in their lives to be more effective and productive. And that's not necessarily therapy. It can be, but it can also be, like you said, sort of this more structured project, almost like interpersonal project management.
Absolutely. I love that. But, that's hard to market.
Term.
So you kind of have to, balance, well, what will people recognize? But I threw around a lot of terms. I like accountability advocate, like authenticity coach. Like I threw out a lot of terms before I decided, what this is life coaching. And I can't get around, and I can't make up a term for that. I have to use what's there. But I do think that qualifying it with my perspective of feminist theory acknowledges that my approach is radically inclusive, it's intersectional, recognizing that it's not just the individual person, putting their head down and powering through and making huge progress in this world, is that every individual is influenced by cultural systems and, socioeconomic structures that is very difficult to put your head down and power through when you're set up to fail by a lot of societal influences. So I think that's the piece that is often missing from life coaching, is recognizing these cultural contexts within that an individual exists within. And that's what I'm hoping to identify and help people navigate, help women especially navigate.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. And that's one of the things that I have an issue with too, is this idea that, well, first of all, anyone can say they're a life coach.
Right.
And second of all, that it kind of becomes, you're a goddess, you can do anything. Just,
just stay positive.
Let the lotus within you bloom, and Absolutely. It will all be fine.
Green juice in the morning and do some salutations, and you're good to go. Yeah, I have a lot of beef with the white spiritual woman as well.
Oh, well, yeah. But I think it does, by sort of talking about it in terms of at least a theoretical model, then you have you have at least something that it's a grounding reference, in the same way when you're doing therapy, you should be able to tell your client what you're doing, right? You should be able to say, like, okay, this is a cognitive intervention. We're looking at changing the way you're thinking about something so that it will change the way you react. It's not just like I'm just pulling out a meme and telling you to just, I don't know, let it go.
Right.
Which I'm a big believer in let it go. Honestly, I really am. But there has to be more to it than that. And recognizing that, all of these things exist in a context.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there are some things that depending on who you are, how you grew up, what you look like, and how you exist in this world are going to be more difficult for some individuals than others. And I think that's the big piece that gets missed in life coaching. There is not just like in therapy, there's not a one size fits all approach. There's not one course fits all life coaching approach either. And I think that's the approach I see a lot online, especially.
So feminism certainly is not for women only. Do you find male clients? Do you find men being drawn to your practice?
I don't work with men, and that's an intentional choice. That's a political choice, honestly. I love men. I'm married to one. But I want to use my platform to amplify women's voices in a world that they're not amplified. But yes, I think men are drawn to what I'm doing. Some of my biggest supporters, some of my most avid listeners are men. I have a lot of male colleagues that are incredibly supportive because I think they recognize the space that I'm trying to create for women. And male allies of the feminist movement or pro-feminist men or whatever you want to call them are incredibly vital to gender equality. I think that men are going to be the movement, but in the meantime, we have to support women. Yeah, and for that reason, I don't take male clients. And I say on my website that I define woman very broadly, actually, and that's anyone who identifies as either femme or woman, either full-time or part-time, is welcome to become a part of my community or one-on-one coaching, or be on the podcast. And because I want to be very gender inclusive and recognize that gender is a spectrum, it's not binary, but those, male identified men, they've got their own spaces. They don't need to be in.
I think they have plenty of spaces.
They certainly do.
Right. So take this now into sort of your dissertation and what you're looking at and why that was interesting to you. And does this relate at all to the kind of work you're doing with women and amplifying their voices?
Yeah. So my dissertation is I'm in the proposal phase. So I haven't done the research. I've done pilot studies, but I haven't done the full research yet. But I'm specifically looking at authenticity and the selling and branding of authenticity in the YouTube beauty community. So the YouTube beauty community is a multi-million-dollar industry these days. It's incredibly successful and prosperous, and men and women both have been making it big and securing traditional advertising campaigns through their YouTube beauty celebrity. But they do so by appearing authentic. And I'm digging into what does that mean and how is that constructed? How is authenticity constructed online? And I feel like I have an interesting approach to this because not only am I studying how others appear authentic, because I'm also trying to figure out the best way to appear authentic online too. So it's a little bit of an autoethnographic study in that I have a YouTube channel as part of the Wild Cozy Truth Project. Occasionally I do vlogs on makeup and beauty because it's a personal interest of mine as well. And seeing the way that authenticity is talked about, but also policed in the comments or on gossip forums is really interesting to me. Like, what is read as authentic as opposed to what is presented as authentic. So that's the direction I'm proposing, the direction I'm going in. But like I said, the data hasn't been collected yet.
Yeah, I find this topic endlessly fascinating. I actually am a consumer of online or YouTube beauty content. And Dr. Angela is not so much. And she, like, I
didn't know this existed.
No, I was like, I was explaining this, actually, some of it last night. I showed Dr. Angela a Get Ready With Me video. And she was like, what is, like, and I was like, well, I kind of, my gateway drug to these online beauty channels was unboxings. And I was like, well, yeah, you watch someone unboxing their Ipsy. And Dr. Angela was like, is that an introverted version of Etsy?
Ipsy versus Etsy.
And I was like, no.
Well, no, because what happened was I have a child who figured out how to get on YouTube and watch other children opening up toys.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is this? And then I read an article about it, and she's like, oh yeah, like there's boxes for adults too. And I'm like, what? Yep. And then she's like showing me that people get these boxes and open them up, and other people watch them open them up. And then she's like, and then people get too much stuff, so then you watch them throw stuff out. And I'm like, what?
No, it's called a decluttering. Yeah. And then yeah, you have to use the correct terminology, Dr.
Oh, right.
Angela.
I'm sorry.
Oh, there's a full language. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Like the anti-haul. Let me present to you things I'm not going to purchase.
Oh.
Dr. Angela was a bit incredulous. She was like, wait a minute. You pay, first of all, with even the subscription boxes, she was like, wait, people pay people to send crap to their house?
Yep.
And I was
random stuff that they don't even know if they want. That's more the thing. Not that you buy stuff and it comes to you in the mail. Is that you're like, I kind of like nail polish. You're like, great, we'll just send you some nail polish every month.
Or my favorite is when a big makeup brand comes out with a new like formula foundation, and they'll send every shade to these YouTubers. They'll send all 40 shades of this foundation. Like, how will they ever use that? There's no way that girl's going to get that dark or that light.
Right.
Well, but they're an influencer, so if they use it in a giveaway.
Exactly.
Dr. Angela, I wish this was a visual
I have
medium.
no idea what you're talking about. This is bizarre to me.
Yeah, the look on her face is so
Is this
priceless.
like, what is that? What is your theory? Because I have like a lot of psychological theories about what this is. Is this just like, is it voyeurism? Is it exhibitionism?
Ooh.
Like, what is this?
Well, okay, so I think we have to take it back to, this is what magazine beauty editors have been doing for eons. Since the beginning of magazine beauty sections, is they get PR sent to them to try out, and then they feature in the magazine. So we're just seeing this, the streaming, moving image of this. But there's also this term micro-celebrity. A micro-celebrity is a practice of becoming a celebrity to a very niche audience. And that's what we're seeing in YouTube. We're seeing this now a lot with streaming as well. So game streams, which I don't understand. I'm not a gamer. I'll Mario Kart till the night is long, but they will stream them playing a game live and people tune into it. It's that one kind of blows my mind, but that's a tangent. But the beauty YouTube community, the reason I found it was very similar was because of Ipsy. I got a product I didn't know how to use, and I figure, well, there's got to be some kind of tutorial online. And lo and behold, there's this giant machine of an underground community of these men and women applying makeup to themselves. And I thought, well, this is genius. Now I understand how to use bronzer. And it just became addictive, honestly. And this was probably 6 or 8 years ago that I started watching these videos. And so as a consumer, I got into it to help me learn how to use the products I was getting. But I think I stayed for the personalities. And that's another facet of micro-celebrity, in that you develop a brand through your personality, and you maintain that through connection with your fan or your fans or your audience. And so I'm trying to, with my research, trying to suss that out and figure out how authenticity and privacy play a part of that. Because I think you're right. I think there is this voyeuristic aspect of it where we're so interested in these people's lives now. It's not just their makeup community or their makeup videos anymore. I mean, I've seen there are full-on gossip forums about individual YouTubers out there, and they're toxic as all get out. But
oh, really?
Oh, yeah. But I mean, they dox, which is, sharing their personal information online. And to the extent where one of the larger YouTubers, there was this conspiracy theory, really, that all of her makeup and home goods, because she did a lot of like home good hauls where she bought a bunch of stuff for her house and showed them on camera, the things that she bought, but they were exorbitant. Like, she was spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. And there was this conspiracy theory that somebody had dug into that city's public records and found where her house was purchased and who her partner was and his family connections. And it was clearly like dirty oil money from the Middle East and blah, 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 blah. Like these,
oh my gosh.
This is the extent. I mean, and is that true? I have no idea. But this is the extent where people are so interested in these YouTubers' lives that they will go into public archives and try to make sense of their consumption, really.
Well, I find this topic so interesting because one of my absolute personal favorite, I guess I'm going to put in quotes, beauty blogger. She's actually a nail blogger, and you're going to guess in 1 second who this is. But she actually, at this point, mostly doesn't do nail videos.
Yeah.
It's fun when she does, and she's like, surprise, surprise, I'm doing a nail video. But she, like, literally, I know who her cat is. I know who her other less famous cat is. I've seen her boyfriend, her father, her sister, and she's done all of their nails, or they've done hers. And I just enjoy watching. Literally last night, I watched her mix. She really likes tea, and I watched her mix 64 or something kinds of tea in a beaker and then brew it and then drink it. I wish the look on Dr. Angela's face. This is the moment when you're like, this shouldn't be a podcast. This should be a YouTube channel. Just to capture the look on Dr. Angela's face. But I find this person really compelling because she's a very, very bright woman. She has a master's in criminal justice. And she's making all of her money pretty much on YouTube.
Yeah. And so she's doing those 64 kinds of tea videos for the views. So smaller YouTubers are creating original content because they haven't done that content yet, because they haven't had their channel for 6 or 8 years like some of the bigger YouTubers have. And so the bigger YouTubers have to resort to clickbait kind of content that their viewers who have seen all of the tutorials, all of the get ready with me, they know how to do a smoky eye and how to, contour their face and do their hair. They've done all that. It's in their archive of videos. Their viewers can go back and watch that. That's fine. So now they're doing this kind of sensationalist content like the 64 kinds of tea, or like the, 100 layers of foundation or 100 layers of nail polish, or things that are just like so fantastical that you just have to watch it, because what does 100 layers of foundation look like? Spoiler alert, terrible.
You know what it reminds me of is, if anybody, I don't know if you're even aware of this, but there was a radio show called Car Talk. Mm-hmm. And it was basically a call-in show where people were like, my carburetor is, my engine is making this sound. Mm-hmm. And then they would diagnose the car or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. You're familiar. Okay. And I remember hearing a story on This American Life about how there was, in some like small media outlet, smaller town or whatever, there was this guy who got really mad because he felt that there was not enough like sort of real car content, and that the Magliozzi brothers had sold out, and they were just, they had what was it? They had like trivia questions and puzzlers. They had like puzzlers and stuff that really wasn't that related to car content within Car Talk. And he was like, I am going to talk about cars and car repair for an hour. And that is what should be done. And that's what he did, and no one cared. Because the real truth of it is, unless you actually currently have a car problem or you're a car aficionado, it's not really that fascinating to listen to car repair dialogue.
Right.
It's just, I mean, so for some people it is, but that's a very niche audience.
Right. But the Car Talk brothers were hysterical. I mean, I don't really care about cars, but I thought that show was hilarious. And, I'd listen to it with my dad. I'd listen to it with my husband. It was, we listened for the personality. And I think that's what the YouTube beauty community has become is, come for the content, stay for the funny jokes or the, catchphrases. Not necessarily the smoky eye.
Well, I'm trying to figure out how this is any different from podcasting, honestly.
Right. It's a different medium. I mean, it's a different audience. It's a different medium. It's definitely a younger audience. And that's why traditional cosmetic companies are spending so much money on advertising and sponsoring a lot of these younger YouTube celebrities, is because they pander to a younger audience, and that money is gold to marketers. And it's just much more funded than podcasting, honestly.
Well, yeah, we know that.
Yeah.
It actually reminds me of a type of marketing that I heard about maybe 15 years ago, and I wish I could remember the reference for it. But there was a type of marketing where what they would do is with kids. If they wanted to sort of start a trend, they would go up to kids and say, who's the coolest kid you know? And they would then go to the person that was the answer to that question. And they would keep doing that until they found a kid that said, me. And then they would give that kid a sample of whatever the toy or product was. And that's how they, it's a very low-tech sort of version of what's done now.
Yeah.
As it was like before the internet. But that's how they were sort of finding what is now called, quote, influencers, which is a word I don't love, but it's just, how is that a word? Anyway, but yeah, that's the way they did it with kids. They like literally, who's the coolest kid you know? Okay, we found the cool kid. Let's give him or her a free copy of whatever we want to become the next trend.
I mean, that's how some of these independent makeup brands have kind of blown up. Things like Morphe or Sugar Pill or Jeffree Star Cosmetics. These things started by finding the most influential influencer or the most popular beauty YouTuber and sending them frickin' everything. And if the product is good enough, like ColourPop eyeshadows, if those are good enough, they're going to talk about them and talk them up. And even if they're not getting paid for it, if you get it in the right hands, absolutely you're going to make a ton of money.
Yeah, I'm finding myself during this conversation more and more terrified about how much I know about this. Because I'm like, oh, Morphe. Well, Morphe's actually associated with Live Glam or Live Glam, depending how you pronounce it. And they have the Morphe Me brush subscription, and they also have Kiss Me and then a nail one. I think I know too much about this. Perhaps I have a problem.
Well, I think Morphe is, I mean, if you want to get into like actual beauty guru YouTuber discussion, Morphe really got their name out there using Jaclyn Hill. Jaclyn Hill is one of the most, I would say that she's probably the most famous and most talked about beauty YouTuber right now. And Morphe just happened to get into her hands at the right time. And I think that company is even based in Florida where she is. So there's a lot of collaboration. And she ended up putting her name on a palette of existing eyeshadows. And that sold out like instantly. And it's just like, regular celebrities, with shoes or something. If you put your name on something, it's going to sell. But this is such a hyper-focused market that, Dr. Angela, have you ever heard of Jaclyn Hill?
I have not. I have no idea who that is. No,
right.
Sorry.
But if you market to a very specific audience of her, 3 million subscribers or something, she's going to sell that palette out instantly to the point where she's going to make another one. And this one's going to be permanent, but it's still going to sell out and they have to restock and sell out and restock. And so by using these influencers' audiences, they have seen massive success, like Morphe especially.
But I think one of the things you're looking at and what you've kind of alluded to is that, you have these individuals who kind of start out with like, oh, I'm just going to like help people learn how to use a bronzer. Right. And that they are this, whoever they are on the video. And then over time, what happens is whatever that person was at the beginning doesn't end up being what that person is by the time they've got 3 million subscribers because they've decided, oh, this is who I have to be, or this is how I'm going to morph my quote unquote brand.
Right.
And so they become, even though it's the illusion. It's the illusion that you're just like looking at a suburban mom in, Minneapolis who's just like, right. In between her, putting the kids off on the school bus and like going to the PTA. But it's right. it's really a business. It's really a character that's been created.
Absolutely. And it's determined by the audience. So what videos are getting the most views or getting the most likes or what's getting downvotes. If something gets downvotes, if it's a Get Ready With Me featuring a blue eyeshadow or featuring a certain brand, they're not going to do that look again, or they're not going to use that product again. And so the more input, this is the kind of the co-construction of authenticity that I'm looking at, the more input that an influencer gets on his or her personality or content, the more they will cultivate this persona or this brand that speaks to the audience, what the audience desires. Mm-hmm. And I think, and Dr. Stephanie threw out this term selling out, and I think that you just hit the nail on the head there, that's to a lot of more critical viewers like myself, that feels like selling out. That feels like they're just trying to make a buck rather than helping their audience learn how to use a product.
But I think the interesting piece about it is that how much of that is conscious versus unconscious. Yeah. Because again, it's like anything else. If you put out a podcast episode on a particular topic and you get 500 more downloads, you'd be right. like, wow, people are really interested in that topic. And Absolutely. Then you're going to kind of like steer that direction. And it's not necessarily a conscious choice of like, I will avoid all other topics because they're not, important, but how much of it is a co-constructed, exchange where I become what you want because you've told me what you want.
Exactly. And how do you maintain a sense of self when you're trying to make more and more money or secure more and more sponsorships or advertising revenue? Listen, I don't envy these YouTubers, the ones that are making millions of dollars a year. I think that they've got an incredibly stressful job because their entire life and personality is up for discussion.
Right.
I want to wrap this back onto your discussions of feminism.
Yeah.
Because so I watch a lot of these videos, and some of my reaction to the videos is incredulity. Because I actually, for some reason, love watching some of these videos, and yet the application of the techniques or products is something that's kind of beyond me. And I've literally sat and watched and counted the number of products that a person has put on their face.
Right.
And when I get to like 16, 17, 18, 19, it just seems ridiculous to me. Right this minute, I walked out of the house and I am not wearing a stitch of makeup. And normally I would
Unacceptable.
Oh, don't say that.
No,
Dr.
I'm just
Angela.
kidding.
I mean, I do have some with me, and I normally would at least wear some lip product of some kind. We're talking about authenticity in terms of the content creators, but what does it mean for authenticity when people are literally putting on a mask? Like, it's
interesting.
It's, to me, it's so strange. And not only that, but I feel like when I was growing up, you put on makeup if you were into that, whatever, and you would use, the product. Like, if you were going to put on eyeshadow, you used the little sponge applicator that came with the thing. And now, like, sponge applicator, that's wrong. You need a packing brush, a fluffy brush, a blending brush.
A MAC 217, preferably.
Exactly. Like, you have to, I'm like, literally, in order to walk out of the house, people are doing what 20 years ago was exclusively for makeup artists, professional makeup artists.
Oh gosh, I have so many thoughts. Let me just kind of make sense of them. First off, hold on, I'm just taking some notes because there's a lot there that I want to get at. So I think you're touching on a lot of things. You're touching on this post-feminist rhetoric of purchasing your own empowerment, in that women now they're earning their own money, they have the means to go out and get it, and the internet facilitates that so easily, like, God bless Amazon. But we can use our own money to purchase the things that we want. What we're being told is that is a feminist act, because money is power and purchasing is power as well. And we can purchase the things that we want. And the things that we want are makeup to make us look more beautiful, to make us look more like the, patriarchal ideal of what a woman should like. So there's this cycle of, I'm making money, I'm spending it on makeup so I can wear this mask to please men. But I think that's a really simple way to look at it. I think it's actually much more involved and much more individual than that. So, total confession, I am wearing a YouTube collaboration eyeshadow palette on my eyes right now. The reason why I do that is because I enjoy the creativity of it, and I enjoy being able to express myself through different makeup techniques. And I've learned those through YouTube, yes, but I don't see makeup as a mask necessarily. And I think I hear this a lot from YouTubers as well, is they don't wear that much makeup leaving the house usually. They'll just wear a little bit of, concealer and mascara and lip gloss, like the average woman. But people want to see how glam can you get, and how high coverage can a foundation get, and how big can these false lashes get. And they want to learn how to do that just to play. And I think that there's an element of play in makeup that we don't give makeup credit for. And this creativity and play that is so essential to adulthood that gets really dismissed as frivolous, whereas the empowerment comes from the play rather than the purchasing and the wearing.
Well, I can see both sides of that. I mean, I think back to when I was a kid and my parents used to have dinner parties. And so I would go hide in their room because they had a TV in their room. And that was before everybody had a TV and a device in every room. And I would get into my mom's makeup and I would put on as much makeup as I possibly could, and and the point is to transform, right? I want to look different than I normally look. I think where it gets problematic is when the way you look isn't okay to start with.
Right.
And that's really and then that gets into some of the, and I'm not familiar with these videos. One of the questions I have is how diverse are the stars that are producing these videos? Right. Are they all white women?
Right.
That's
mostly, yes.
That's one of my questions, and then it does get into issues of race and socioeconomic status and all of that. I mean, I remember when, CoverGirl put Beyonce out there and it was like, she didn't look, the way that she looks when you just see her on the street. Like they had lightened her up to make her look much more like a white woman. So those things start to get into play as well. So it's not, I get it's fun to look different.
Yeah.
But the problem is if it's not okay to be who you are when you're not engaging in that play and you're not engaging in that creativity or expression.
Right. And I will defend beauty YouTubers all day. I do think that the vast majority of them are very self-aware of what they do and what they do to their face, and they know their audience to say, listen, you don't have to do this. If you want to go out naked face, that's wonderful, and I fully support you. But if you choose, and there's this rhetoric of choice, right, that's co-opted feminism, but I think there's something to it, right? If you choose to put on makeup and you want to do it this way, that is your choice, and I support you. And so why can't we say, well, if you want to leave the house naked-faced, great, but if you want to leave the house with full coverage foundation, great. And I hear that a lot in the YouTube community. And I find that really heartening. I think that's a good message to be repeating to their audiences. Maybe they don't say it enough, but they do say it. In terms of diversity, I would love to dive into that because one of the YouTubers I watch, her name is Jackie Aina. She is a woman of color, a Black woman from, I believe, California. And she is, I would say, the most widely watched and well-respected woman of color in the YouTube beauty community. She made a point recently in one of her videos, and I'm going to butcher it, but I'm going to try to remember what she said, that the reason women of color aren't as widely watched is because there aren't as many of them. But when you're looking for how to use a product or how to do a certain technique, you look for somebody who looks like you. And lighter skinned women or white women look at Jackie and say, well, her style or her technique won't apply to me because she doesn't look like me. I think that's changing, but not fast enough. I think Jackie is a huge game changer because she does have a wide audience of both white women and women of color and men. And that's another thing is you mentioned CoverGirl bringing Beyonce on as their spokesperson. And CoverGirl recently broke some barriers and bringing the first male on as a CoverGirl. And he was a YouTuber. His name is James Charles. I think he's 18 now. He's just a young kid, but he has the most incredible style and technique, and his brows go on for days. And there was a lot of uproar about CoverGirl bringing on a young male as their spokesperson. But it's changing, right? Men are becoming more involved in the makeup hobby. I was going to say makeup industry, but men have always been makeup artists. When something is professional, it's men, but if something's a hobby, it's women.
No, so true. I mean, go back to Max Factor or something like that.
Right. I mean, chefs are the same way. Like in the home,
right,
a woman is a cook, but when it's professionalized, it's a man's job. But as hobbyists and enthusiasts and influencers, non-white women and men are growing, and their audiences are growing. And I'm hopeful that that's going to change, but I also don't see that changing in the near future. But I think people are becoming more aware of the need for diversity in the beauty industry.
I see some people at least giving some of the white or light-skinned women at least mentioning, hey, one of the things I liked about this particular palette was they have some different options that would work well on darker skin tones, or
Right.
I didn't like this particular line of eyeshadows because they really were all shades that would only work on light skin tones, or they at least give some mention to it. It's certainly not enough, to Dr. Angela's point, but at least people aren't completely ignoring the issue in the way that they used to.
Yeah, and even new makeup lines. So Rihanna came out with a makeup line called Fenty Beauty, and it made huge waves because it had 40 shades of foundation with its initial launch, which is relatively unheard of. And I remember hearing when that first came out, everyone was talking about how great it was to have such a diverse shade range. And I think that things like that, and especially women of color who already have the economic potential like Rihanna to come out with an incredibly diverse makeup range or makeup line is what's going to change the makeup industry.
And yet she only came up with one shade of red lipstick. Is that true?
A quote-unquote universal shade
of
and
red
a universal
lipstick.
lip balm too, or a lip gloss as well. But she's going to expand. I think I'm going to give her a pass on that.
I believe everyone can wear red lipstick. I don't know if it's the same
agree.
one, but everyone can wear red lipstick.
It sure made me curious about that one shade of red lipstick. Let me tell you.
Her lip gloss may or may not be on my Christmas list.
I just remember a very famous attributed to Coco Chanel, which I don't know if she actually said this, but something along the lines of when the lipstick is like, well, does that come off? And she's like, if it didn't, I would make any more money or something like that. But it's like, I'd be out of business. If it didn't come off, I'd be out of business,
The funny thing
as I butcher that.
About having this conversation with Dr. Angela is that she's actually in some ways the one who taught me to use makeup. Like, I somehow have embraced this whole YouTube. I feel like the YouTube watching pastime is different from the actual wearing makeup pastime.
Yes. Well, I think it's expanded. I think that we used to get all of our makeup news or information or tips and tricks from magazines and friends. And now we can go online for all of that. So I think, Dr. Angela introducing you to makeup and techniques and products is not unusual. I mean, I learned from my mom to have this kind of appreciation for cosmetics. But I can go deeper and more. I mean, I think we're celebrating the time of the geek, and women are just starting to geek out about makeup. I mean, what's wrong with that?
It is not my fault that she watches all this YouTube video. I'm not taking responsibility for that. I just did her makeup a couple of times when we went out when we were in grad school.
No, she was the first one that introduced me to the term highly pigmented. So, and we know that's like a buzzword.
Are you sure, Angela, you're not a closet beauty YouTuber that we just don't know
no,
about?
I'm totally not.
Do you go by a name?
I don't. No. I'm way back with MAC, and that's like as far as I ever got in the makeup world was I got to MAC, and that was the end of it. But no, this has been really, really interesting, and I'm reeling over here. I don't know. I'm not going to spend a lot of time watching YouTube videos. I can tell you that much. But I do think I've seen a couple. The ones that I think are funny are the ones where the women are like, "What the heck do you do with this?" I think those are the ones that are funny. Like I have this brush. They say to wash it every single time. I haven't washed it in 3 years. That kind of stuff. So
Well, I mean, the YouTube community has become the new QVC or Home Shopping Network. I mean, that's really
I don't watch that either, and she watches that too. So.
That's what happened. I moved from QVC to YouTube.
Oh my gosh. That's hysterical. But no, this has been really interesting from, so many different perspectives. I mean, I think I think you bring something really unique to the conversation by sort of taking in all these different perspectives and not just not just looking at this from one dimension. So can you tell our listeners where they can find you if they want to follow you, they want to see your evolution of your research, and maybe they can even help you out by going on your YouTube site?
I would love that. So the best way I'm most active on Instagram, and that's just at Wild Cozy Truth. But you can also find me on Twitter, Facebook, just search Wild Cozy Truth on both those, and YouTube. You can find me, it's under my own name. So Renee M. Powers. M is my middle initial. Yes, it spells a sentence. Yes, it's my life's calling. Renee M. Powers. So, and then wildcozytruth.com has links to everything.
Thank you for listening to Chasing the Mind. Today's episode featured music from purpleplanet.com. Please visit our website at chasingthemind.com, where you can find more information about Renee Powers and find links to her website. You can listen to past episodes and read about upcoming guests and events, and you can find our link to our Patreon page. Chasing the Mind is intended to provide information and entertainment and is not intended to substitute for professional mental health assessment or treatment. The opinions expressed by the doctors and the guests are their own and do not reflect professional advice. Information offered by the doctors does not create a therapist-client relationship. Please seek professional help with a mental health treatment provider if needed.